Understanding young people's views of adolescence. Parents and carers often report finding this is a challenging stage of development where they feel less involved in their child's life. Blakemore, 2019. Hey, for some young people, this can also feel like a difficult time. In a workshop with 28 young people aged 14 to 18 years in London, researchers Francesco Varghi and Emily Emmett, 2018, found that as one young person aged 17 years described, the bad thing about being my age is being expected to act like adults at college and work, and being treated like a child at home, page 4. Contradictory expectations of young people include wider society and particularly policy makers who grapple with the understanding where young people fit. There are conflicting attitudes across society, and as another 17-year-old described, adolescents are too old in some situations, but not old enough in others. Varghi and Emmett, 2018, page 6. A cursory glance at differences in how diverse cultures and societies address the ages at which young people gain permission to engage in adult activities such as driving and voting indicate that our understanding of adolescence is varied and still evolving. For example, most countries that permit alcohol drinking have set the minimum legal drinking age at 18 years, but others, including Cuba, Luxembourg, Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Serbia, and Zambia, set it at 16 years, and minimum purchase ages are globally from 15 to 25 years. Influenced by social and cultural factors, as well as by biological evidence for the impact of alcohol on developing brain. You will learn more about the transition to adulthood in chapter 14. Teens' views of adolescence. The 28 adolescents taking part in the Varghi Emmett's 2018 focus group interviews in London identified conflicting ideas and experiences about this time of rapid change in life, but stressed that adolescence was not an inherently negative time of life. In contrast to the ideas suggested by Stanley Hall, these teens also felt that young people was a vague term, and they preferred teen or adolescent from adolescence description and insights at the workshop. Varghi and Emmett drew the following conclusion about their experience. Adolescence is a time of growth and freedom, but also increased responsibility. Adolescence can be an awkward time, somewhere between childhood and adulthood, which can lead to uncertainties and anxiety. Educational progress is an important marker for life transition from primary school, childhood, into secondary school, adolescence, into higher education, young adult. Financial independence was the ultimate marker of adulthood. Varghi and Emmett, 2018, page 3. Brain and body, a time of rapid transformation. The field of neurobiology has significantly impacted understanding of adolescent development in recent years. By exploring changes in the brain and body, researchers have discovered that, contrary to what was previously believed, the brain changes substantially through and beyond adolescence. And indeed, in adolescence, the brain is particularly malleable. This goes some way to explaining aspects of adolescent thinking and behavior. During adolescence, The sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen, stimulate puberty. It's not correct, is it? It's when there's a build-up of estrogen, even in the men, that it triggers puberty. That's weird. Rapid growth in height and weight, maturation, and the development of secondary sexual characteristics is characteristic of adolescence globally, but its timing varies considerably between individuals as well as across cultures, depending on issues such as diet. In addition to physical changes, adolescents can also begin to think and process information in different ways. Barbara Inhelder, a developmental psychologist who worked closely with Jean Piaget, termed this period the formal operational stage, the fourth and final shift in thinking in Piaget's conceptualization of cognitive development, as you learned in chapter 7. It characterizes the young person's growing capacity to think in more abstract and hypothetical terms, in Helder and Piaget, 1958. Contemporary research exploring adolescent cognition charts that emerged of executive functions, including decision-making skills, self-awareness, and the understanding of others. These abilities underpin opportunities for enhanced learning and abstract thinking. Sebastian Burnett and Blakemore, 2008. As adolescents may begin to reflect more, ask more questions, and challenge ideas which previously they might have more readily accepted. Asking questions and challenging ideas can lead many young people to question their self or sense of self, the future and the future of society and the planet. These issues are discussed more later, and they may go some way to explaining why adolescents may appear argumentative as they seek to forge their own opinions and their place in the world, which is an important part of their transition into adulthood. Since the late 1980s, new imaging technologies such as MRI scans create more detailed images of living brains, enabling researchers to understand more about brain structure and function. Lawrence Steinberg and colleagues from Temple University in the US study neurobiological changes during puberty, affecting young people think, feel, and behave. His research reveals that brains undergo substantial rapid development, starting from about 10 years and extending to 24 years, challenging long-standing assumptions about neurobiological development, which was once thought to be mostly finished during childhood. Sawyer et al., 2018. Indeed, brain changes continue throughout life, but adolescence marks a particularly significant period. Plasticity is the term used by researchers to describe the brain's capacity to develop and adapt. During adolescence, pubertal hormones, estrogen and testosterone, affect the brain's plasticity. MRI scans reveal that areas of the brain's cortex develop at different stages. The auditory and visual cortex, governing sight and sound, and motor cortex, controlling movement, develop the mature during childhood and early adolescence. Yet the prefrontal cortex is underdeveloped and still maturing during late adolescence and into early adulthood. This brain region is involved in higher level functioning skills such as problem solving, decision making and planning, and regulating emotions and behaviours. Now that's quite an interesting thing, because I have a neurodivergent brain, having dyslexia, and my strong points are problem solving, decision making, planning, regulating emotions and behaviours. Which is quite interesting, because they're the things that dyslexia have made me good at. Or was it the army up to the age of 17, from the age of 12? Or was it smoking cannabis at 17 when I left the army? Interesting. I don't know. Seems a bit of a coincidence, all them things being the same things. Furthermore, pubertal hormones stimulate dopamine production, meaning adolescents experience dopamine peaks. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter and sends messages between cells, influencing mood and our experience of reward and pleasure. And it also affects the prefrontal cortex. So adolescence is marked by two quite contrasting neurological developments. The dopamine activated desire to seek pleasure and thrills in contrast to a still undeveloped executive function and the ability to regulate behavior and emotions. This contrast provides a neurobiological explanation for why many, but certainly not all, adolescents may be more predisposed to engage in risky behaviors. While neurobiological research has significantly extended understanding of adolescence, Lawrence Steinberg, 2014, warns against our over-resilience in neurobiological explanations of adolescent behavior and thinking. Exploring the very essence of the brain plasticity reveals that nature, including hormones and brain activity, alone only tells part of the story, and highlights the importance on the environment, nurture, in the influencing brain development. I also had a good childhood with both parents and stuff like that. But I was definitely dyslexic from a young age, and ability of 12-and-a-half-year-old. In the UK, psychologist Sarah Blakemore and colleagues study neuroplasticity during adolescence, its particular impact upon mental health and the interaction of nature and nurture. Adolescence and mental health. Some of Blakemore's early neurobiological research focused on what she perceived as a pattern in the onset of particular mental health challenges during adolescence. This prompted Blakemore and colleagues at University College London to question what is it about brain development in adolescence that marks this period as particularly vulnerable time and increases susceptibility to some mental health conditions. Blakemore, 2019b, describes how during adolescence the prefrontal cortex, which governs executive function of control, insight and decision making, is being reshaped, And at this same time, the limbic system, which is responsible for emotion, is exceptionally active. These changes can make young people particularly sensitive to adversity because the prefrontal cortex is less able to moderate the emotional response of the limbic system. The immaturity of the prefrontal cortex and its underdeveloped capacity to regulate emotions and behavior creates vulnerability to adverse experiences in the world around them, such as bullying, neglect, and enduring stress. In addition, young people's cognitive awareness and functioning is changing, leading them to explore new ways of thinking and feeling, with a sharp rise in abstract thinking, which I am top 8% in the world according to the computer on Facebook, abstract thoughts. And the capacity to plan, imagine one's future, and increase awareness of self and how others view you. Increasing pressures are placed on the developing adolescents. Blakemore research highlights the interaction between different parts of the brain and between nature and nurture, and the importance of recognizing these multiple interrelated factors when drawing conclusions about the onset of mental health difficulties. Excuse me, I've just got to let the dog out. But are they calling dyslexia a mental health problem again? Because I hate how I've heard that in psychology. Neurobiological research has implications for parents and carers and for practitioners who work with young people because it can reorientate and deepen an understanding of adolescence as a period of cognitive development with opportunities for learning, but also a time of vulnerability where young people may require specialized support and guidance. Blakemore calls for the reframing of how adolescence is understood, recognizing that plasticity of the brain and its capacity for lifelong learning. Blakemore and Frith, 2005, Blakemore, 2019b. She draws attention to the need to understand and support young people to engage, participate, and learn through formal schooling, informal education, and work, rather than demonizing adolescence. Linking behavior with brain development can interpret certain behaviors as part of a process of development. You will learn more about how insights into brain development may affect interpretations of young people's behavior in chapter 14. Key points. Adolescence involves considerable social, cognitive, neurobiological transformations. Greater risk-taking behavior in adolescence can be understood as an adaptive development supporting transition into adulthood. Adolescence marks a period of vulnerability to mental health problems, reflecting considerable social and neurobiological change. I hate the way they just say mental health problems. They're not defining a very broad scope. Now, are they referring to psychology, calling mental health dyslexia? Or are they talking about somebody who's got bipolar? It's just ridiculous. Reframing adolescence as part of as a time of developmental opportunities for enhanced learning and participation can challenge stereotypical perceptions of adolescents as moody, unpredictable risk takers. Self and social relationships. An intense focus on peers. Friends are important through childhood, but one of the most striking characteristics of the transition to early adolescence is an increasing focus on peers. The amount of time spent with peers increases dramatically, leading to less time with parents, family, and other adults. Larson and Richards, 1991. Feeling accepted by a peer group becomes crucial to young adolescents, who also identify peers as an important role model. Brown, 2004. Over half of contemporary adolescents also develop intense parasocial relationships with media, social media, music, and sporting figures. Symbolic, one-sided social ties with celebrities and influencers that they conceive of as a friendship or relationship. Gleason, Theron, and Newberg, 2017, P1. A trend that has accelerated with opportunities and communication presented by social media. That's how I see it. I don't know any of these YouTubers I watch, but I feel I know them and would consider them a friend if I ever met them, or probably treat them as a friend if I ever met them, rather than know that they're a friend. I think there's a slight definition difference there. And even with A-stars, say you take Miley Cyrus, you would treat her as a friend, but obviously you wouldn't know her. Although you see her everywhere. Heightened pro-social behaviour and the development of reciprocal social relationships is an important aspect of adolescent development, and psychological research highlights heightened self-consciousness and the growing need for young people to feel like they fit in with a particular social group during the teenage years. Psychological research also highlights greater self-consciousness in early adolescence, and the need to perceive peer acceptance has powerful effects on adolescents' behaviour, as Blakemore, 2019a, and her colleagues have shown in many studies of risk-taking. Adolescents are hypersensitive to social exclusion. When young adolescents are given hypothetical scenarios in the psychological experiments and asked to choose antisocial or pro-social actions, they are more likely, compared to younger children, to follow what they are told their peers would do. In experiments in real-world settings, if they are with peers rather than alone, they choose more risky options and focus on their benefits rather than costs. Taken together, neurobiological and psychological research both point to the reasons why adolescents may take more risks. In addition to these explanations, this is the time in life when teenagers typically face many new social and environmental situations, which require social navigation and assessing risks and benefits. Enhanced risky and pro-social behaviours during this time are therefore also an adaptive development which supports the shift from childhood dependency and a young person's transition into adulthood.